Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2018 and this experiment where we take a look at what would happen if Boston United were taken over by people with several billions of pounds at this point. Originally it was an experiment of what would happen if they had £1 billion, but so far we've put in at least two and given them two sugar daddy owners. Make sure I get that phrase out right. And we've seen them go on this roller coaster of a ride where they've gone up through 4 consecutive promotions, held the championship for one season, and gone down for 2 consecutive relegations. It's not been the greatest of times for them. And when we look at the finances, you can see I have given them both a new sugar daddy owner, in addition to the one they had before, and now £900 million to try and reinvigorate the club back up into the Championship at least, if not the Premier League. But they do have a way to go after 2 consecutive relegations. They did hold League 2 last time about. They actually won it last season, finishing top of the league. So they're back in League 1 for next season. I would expect them to reach the Premier League 5 seasons from now, but we'll find that out in just a moment. The question is whether they can hold the Premier League and hopefully kick on from there. So let's go forward 5 years in time now. We'll take a quick look actually at the facilities. We can see they've got a 19,000 seater stadium and their facilities are average excellent. I think they're pretty much 2020 from memory. So let's go forward 5 years and see where the club have got to. Well, we are now 5 years into the future. This is their first season back in Sky Bet League 1. And as you can see, pre-season went reasonably well before they then went on a 3-game losing streak. Drawing the next one, did win, and then failed to win it in their next 3. So only 1 win in 8 from their first games of the season. They then did put together a good winning run, especially here, several wins in a row in League 1, also going through in the FA Cup against AFC Telford, losing in the Checkatrade Trophy though, and getting knocked out by Bury in the second round of the FA Cup. League form very patchy, not at all consistent. I mean, this is terrible form. And then towards the end of the season, they recover a little bit, make the playoffs, but are beaten in both legs by Coventry to condemn them to another season in the Championship. And despite all that money being pumped in, when we look at their transfer history for that season, they did not spend any. They actually had a £600,000 surplus from transfers because the money that we put in their bank account was not communicated to the transfer or wage budget. So I got a little bit of criticism for doing that last time, particularly with the wage budget. So I thought I'd let the club handle the money. And realistically, it's the following season where we will see the changes happen. And when we look at that second season in the Championship, you can already see from the first few fixtures that things are an awful lot better. They went out of the Carabao Cup to Wrexham very early on, but a good run in the league set them up well, doing very well actually. Also went through in the FA Cup first round, carried on doing well, beat Mansfield in the second round. Lots and lots of wins here, a few defeats, but generally doing well. Going out of the FA Cup to West Brom, 4-0. No surprise there as a Premier League team, but their league form absolutely brilliant, and there's no doubt that they've managed to get promoted that season, given they're not in the playoffs. I imagine they won the league that year. And as you can see right at the top of the table there, 3 points clear of Swindon. They have forced their way back into the Championship after being there just 3 or 4 years ago. They've done very well to recover so much so quickly as well. Get I think 2 promotions in 3 years and put themselves back in the second tier of English football. And when we have a look, if we go back at their transfers for that season, we can see that they did finally spend quite a bit of money, £30 million spent on winning the title by 3 points. Biggest signings coming in were Stelios Desripis, no idea how you say that, Ollie Martin Brudalen, Paul Knowles, I can say that one, and Frank Good as well, all coming in for well over £1 million. Trevor Chalobah coming in too. £1.1 million raised by players going out, but ultimately it's about a rebuilding job and sensible spending this time. Bringing in players from the Championship, getting them to drop down a division, it's the easiest way to get promoted, and they have forced their way into that next league. And you can see in their first season in the Championship, not too bad for a newly promoted team, certainly better than they were doing before. A lot of green on the screen, still a few defeats, but doing reasonably well overall. In the FA Cup third round, they actually drew Bromley and managed to win 6-0 to take them into the next round, alongside a nice run of victories. They did lose to Sunderland in the FA Cup and went on a poor run in the league as well, certainly knocking their confidence, before finally recovering in a brilliant, blistering finish to the season, then beating Birmingham 5-2 on aggregate before knocking out Sheffield Wednesday in the Championship final. Kevin Tate with the winning goal in the 78th minute, finally sending Boston to the top division in the Premier League. Absolutely excellent run there, getting 3 promotions in 4 seasons, the money really kicking in and taking them to the next level. And you can see from their transfer history for that season how they did it. £66 million spent to get them into the Premier League, in addition to the £30 million they'd already spent in League One. Biggest transfer, Andre Whittle dropping down from West Brom. Edward Banfield from Brighton as well. You can see more Premier League teams in there. Neil Kitching, another one. Several players for £5 million plus. Certainly showing the transfer outlay, and that'll set them up well for the Premier League as well, bringing in several players who have already got familiar with the club despite Premier League experience, and now they'll be able to kick on with even more spending to bring the best possible players in. So that first season in the Premier League, they started off with a defeat against Bournemouth at home before then getting their first Premier League win 3-2 at St Mary's. Kubicki getting 2 goals, Paul Wood with 1 as well. A very good lead there, 3-2 up, or 3-1 up after 55 minutes before Tom Bye brought another one back for Southampton. They went through in the Carabao Cup as well, also beating Brighton there before finally getting knocked out by Derby. And their Premier League form are very difficult in this period here, before finally getting a few wins together, including 1-0 against Arsenal. That is a very good result. But that defeat to Derby sent off a terrible run of form, losing to Chelsea, Spurs and Liverpool won't have helped, all back-to-back. Then losing to Preston, finally beating Middlesbrough, but even more defeats on the way. A 4-0 crushing by United as well. And then just no wins for such a long period of time here. This is, for a club with £1 billion, dreadful. No victory since the end of the year. They won on the 26th of December and then didn't win for the rest of the season. That's awful. They haven't had a win in 2031 and it's now June. They're halfway through the year without a victory. And rather unsurprisingly, they were relegated. The interesting thing is there are only 7 points off safety, with West Brom and Brighton both on 34 points. And had they just got 3 wins in their last 4 months in the Premier League, or 5 months in the Premier League, they would have survived. It's terrible that their form just dipped so much to the end of the season, and they have been relegated rock bottom of the league, 4 points off Norwich. Not good enough whatsoever, and it means they're going to have to slog their way back out of the Championship again before they can get into the Premier League. And in their first season in the Premier League, they only spent £35 million. Given the amount of money they spent in the seasons before this one, that is really not very much. Their biggest signing, £7.5 million, Dominic Carroll from QPR. Not really the best quality transfers coming in. I don't know if it's something to do with fair play, because they will have spent, I think, about £120 million in 3 seasons. But even then, I think they should really be within their limits to go out and buy more players. But they did not do enough in the transfer market, and it definitely hurt them in the league. The following season, back in the Championship, you can see pre-season went very, very well, and their league season started very well as well. Carabao Cup progress coming quite easily before losing to Bournemouth 4-2, but lots and lots of wins in the Championship. Not too many surprises that they did well here. Going out of the FA Cup to Brighton though, they did get some defeats just before that game and then went on another winning streak. Quite a few winning streaks, making it only into the playoffs. 3rd place finish this season. Did squeak through on penalties against Swansea and then beat Watford 2-1. Camille Daniels with 2 goals in the final. The second time they've gone up through the playoffs, and they are back into the Premier League at the first time of asking. They did it the hard way, but they did manage to make their way through. And when you look at their transfer history for this final season, you can see they actually had a net profit of £12 million. And maybe the money is disappearing because that's 2 seasons in a row where they've not invested properly in the team, and it has started to hit them. When we look at their profile, you can see this roller coaster continues, this little weird dip here, and then when we gave them the money, they shot back up, dropped down, and have risen once more. But there's a bit of yo-yoing going on here. Another green dot here. It's starting to look very much like it's Christmas time. Could certainly be doing with a little bit more consistency, which when we did this experiment last year, there was a lot more consistency. They struggled initially, FC United and Manchester, but they did establish themselves in the Premier League without too much trouble, something Boston are really struggling to do. You can see their stadium has increased its capacity. And when we look at their finances and facilities in the club detail screen, reputation exactly where you would expect it to be at this point. Their bank balance looking very healthy, still £500 million in there. They spent 400 million though, which is a huge amount of money given that they're yo-yoing in and out of the Premier League. But they've got a very big transfer budget there, over £100 million and plenty in the wage budget as well. Their facilities still pretty good. They've declined from where they once were. They were 2020 before. They've not increased the other facilities too much, but they have spent money on the stadium. And if we look at their landmarks, we can see the promotion there, stadium expansion in there, youth category raised to category 1. Their sugar daddy withdrew funding 3 years ago. That keeps on happening because you need to change the mentality of the chairman, which you can only do in the full game editor if you want a sugar daddy to stick around. Using the in-game editor doesn't do enough. Not too many other things happening in the last few years, no real changes of ownership, just a withdrawal of funding. But they've managed to progress quite a bit, which is helpful. Now, next episode, because we're taking this quite slowly, we've been going 5 years at a time, I'm going to leave them with the exact same amount of money. They've got £500 billion. If that's not enough, I don't know how much is. £500 million, not billion pounds. So I'm actually going to go for 10 years in the next experiment, which, given they're a Premier League club again, 10 years in the Premier League, they had better be challenging for the Champions League title with £500 million. But we'll have to see how it does. If they aren't challenging for the Champions League in 10 years' time, I will give them one last injection of cash to try and right their wrongs, give them maybe 5 to 10 more years, and then we will end the experiment. So there are only, I think, 2 more parts to this experiment. If you're still enjoying it though, do drop a like on the video. Make sure that you do want to see those 2 like buttons. Obviously, if interest wanes off, there's no point in carrying on the experiment. Subscribe to the channel. Those videos will come out in 2 days' time, and then another 2 days' time. I'm alternating between experiments and my Newcastle United series, which you should check out. You can also follow me on Twitter if you haven't already, and make sure you have clicked that subscribe button. But until next time, see ya.